boom, hit that subscribe button. Welcome to Real Truth and Power, where we provide powerful content to uplift the black community with health, wealth, and knowledge of self.
Real truth and power.
And while this intro is playing, please do me one more favor, y'all. And again, boom, hit that subscribe button while this intro is playing. Let's get into it.
About it.
You are now tuned in to Real Truth and Power, the show that uplifts the community with health, wealth, and knowledge of self. Here's your host, Everett Winchester.
All right, peace and blessings, family. We're going to get into it again. Please hit that subscribe button. We are going to have a phenomenal, powerful information show today. Before I get on the topic, religious instruction of the Negroes, I want to talk about, well, just not talk about it, but just talk about a future show about this book, Flash of the Spirit. Basically, it's about how Africans influence art all across the world globally. That's a great book. I read that, just got finished it with my Sankofa study group, so shout out to them. I want to get into this book. Oops, there we go. The Religious Instruction of the Negroes in the United States. This book pissed me off, straight up. It made me think about religion. It made me hate religion even more. It kind of made me hate white people to a certain degree because it shows how they thought of black people, how they thought of slaves, how they felt we were heathens because we didn't have religion, even though we had a beautiful spirituality, an African culture. They stripped that all away and called us heathens. The book is real powerful. It starts off, and I think this is the most powerful part of the book, it starts off giving a historical account of slavery. It talks about how many slaves first came to the United States, when they came, the year. It's pretty much a census report, which is powerful. This book documents slavery. This book was published in 1842. 1842. So that lets you know they were really documenting black people, recording black people. It says it in the book. They recorded how we acted. They wrote down and they made notes. They studied us and they tried to use us experimentally wise, mentally and physically. The book is tough to read. It's really tough to read. But it gives a census report of how slavery grew. It talks about what states it grew in. So it really breaks down the documentation of slavery, and it talks about how they documented slavery in the church, how the church was recording slaves. It's crazy, but it gets deeper. It talks about free blacks in the North being out of control, not being able to take care of themselves versus slaves in the South on plantations. It talks about that we were heathens and we were less than people and that religion could save us and stuff like that. Let me get into this short video. It's giving an excerpt of the book. And hopefully this will give you a better understanding of what the book's talking about. Let's check it out.
Benefited in a pecuniary point of view. For a faithful servant is more profitable than an unfaithful one, or and better work.
First, let's start there. An unfaithful servant, is going to do less work than a faithful servant. It's crazy.
Less troublesome and less liable to disease. And
a faithful servant is less troublesome and less likely to get disease? I don't get that one.
Benefited in a moral point of view. We are so accustomed to sin in the Negroes, which in them appears as a matter of course, that
we are so used to sin in the Negroes, which in them appears as a matter of course. So we're sinful people?
Sensibilities become blunted. We cease to abhor it and then fall into sin ourselves. We also associate everything that is mean and degrading in the Negroes, and almost necessarily so, from their mean and degraded characters.
So they associate everything sin-wise, negative-wise with us. We're mean and we have a degraded character. First, let me explain that this book was written by a pastor of the faith. This book was a lot of sermons preached to white people, taught the slave masters on how to instruct your slave to be obedient, how to brainwash your slave. You don't have to whip your slave all the time. Give him an option. Take this religion and be humble and respect our code, or get your butt kicked.
Consequence is they do not seem worthy of our regard. They lose all our respect, and it is no marvel if our conduct towards them is dictated by our opinion of them. Planters will generally confess that the management of them is not only attended with trouble and vexation, but with provocations to sin.
The management of the slaves creates white people to have sin because they have to manage us. No, people shouldn't be slaves. That's number one. When they are slaves, it is a human nature to rebel and want to be free. So you feel that creates sin in you to discipline us? How about it's immoral to have slaves? This is a preacher, y'all. This is how all the white preachers were being taught to teach the slave masters. Let's go back into it.
The demoralizing influence which they exert over children and youth when they are permitted to associate much with them is well known to us all. In fine, the influence of the Negroes on the morals of our white population is exceedingly pernicious. It is like a millstone hanged about the neck of society. But when we shall see them assuming a higher standard of morals to their current opinion of turning against vice, their appearance and deportment becoming more respectful, then we shall be favorably affected ourselves. Both classes of...
That goes on to say that if the Negroes, slaves, black people, Africans, start accepting religion, they'll be better human beings. The white man won't have to whip them as much, so they'll be less sinful. And maybe some of the Negroes' ways won't come up on the white people. Man, this book hurt. It really hurt. I challenge everybody to read this book just to know how they use religion to control slaves. I don't want to get into the book too much because it's going to make me sick in my stomach. But the message for this book is that we have to learn ourselves, man. That's what Real Truth and Power is all about. As you can see by the hat, I always try to promote it. It's learning yourself. Learn your culture. We're all from Africa. I don't care what religion you study, whatever. Man, we have to learn ourselves. I don't even want to get any more into this book because it's going to make me sick in my stomach. But learn your culture. Learn the truth of religion. And then you can really find yourself and figure out what's true for yourself. This book, man, it was an eye-opener for me because it made me realize that it just talks about how they really thought about black people back then. And if you go on church, if you go on religion, and if the pastor is teaching all the plantation owners and all of the free white people how black people are heathens and how they need church and religion and give them religion, why would white people why would white people change their view of black people today? They've been grown up thinking that black people are less than human. And it always says it throughout the book, we are less than humans. You know, we are heathens. So no wonder white people in America think this way. They think that they don't value us. The Constitution isn't for us. So we need to really wake up, learn ourselves. Again, the book is The Religious Instruction of the Negro. And again, we'll probably come back to Flash of the Spirit. Hey, man, in conclusion, my thought on religion is I don't have a thought on it. I'm learning culture. I'm learning my true self, and that means more to me. And I really know the true history of where religion began. If you're ready to go on that journey with me, please hit that subscribe button. I'm going to tell you, does Jesus really exist or not? How all this stuff began? We're going to really get into it. So please, again, if you want to learn all of this stuff, if you really want to learn your true knowledge yourself, please do me one favor. And again, hit that subscribe button. Let's get this information out to the people. A pastor, I can't say this enough, a pastor wrote this book. It's a bunch of sermons in this book about how they were going and telling the slave owners how to give their slaves religion to control them. Y'all still want to be Christians? Peace and blessings, man. Welcome to Real Truth. Thank you for tuning in to Real Truth and Power Live. And again, stay tuned for more powerful information. Black people, I love you. Let's stay united. One.